Hello everyone and welcome to a lecture in EC 231 Intermediate Programming. In this video we're going to talk about how to set up Git and GitHub. Git is a tool that's used for something called version control. And what version control is that when you have your code and you make an upgrade or an update to it, you essentially change its version. And the Git tool lets you keep track of that. So let's say you're able to add a pretty nice feature to your program, but then the next feature that you want to update breaks everything. So you need to roll it back. Well, using Git and GitHub lets you do this without too much suffering. So here's how we go about it. You want to go to github.com, and this is the specific platform that we're going to be using. It's not always github.com. Git does not just work with GitHub, but it works with other. Git's its own software. And here what you want to do is you want to click the green button here, new, to create something called a repository. So what a repository is that it's a place to store your code. And again, we're using GitHub. There are other resources that you can use, like GitLab. The University of New Mexico has its own Git. It's called LoboGit. But anyways, here what you want to do is when you create a Git repository, you want to give it a name. I'm actually going to go with the recommendations of GitHub, and I'm going to call this Git Special Broccoli. And I'm going to provide a description for this Git, and I'm going to say this is a test. I'm going to have this as a public repository so that way anyone on the internet can see this code. So one thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to initialize this repository with a README. And why do you need a README? Well, README lets you specify and document instructions and provide information on your code. And if people decide to use your code, it's best practices to provide some sort of instructions for them so that way they can use it properly. And here we will create our repository. So with that, it's all good. We have it created. Now it's time for us to go to our terminal and clone our repository. So here we are, and we're ready to get our repository. So the first thing that I need to do is that I need to download the packages that I need for this tutorial. And they are as follows. So now I'm downloading everything that I need, which is Git, GCC, Make, and Vim. And if it turns out, if you're having problems installing these packages, you might need to update your package program. And here's is the command, one of three commands to do it. You're going to do sudo apt update, put a -y so you can just download all the stuff directly. And that'll run. Luckily I have everything updated. And now I will do sudo apt upgrade -y, and this will actually install all the packages that you need. And then finally I should do sudo apt dist upgrade -y. Right, so after running these two commands, which is sudo apt update -y, then sudo apt upgrade -y, and finally sudo apt dist upgrade -y, you'll have all your packages upgraded, and you should be able to run this, which is sudo apt install git, gcc, make, and vim. So now with that there, we are ready to download our repository. And the way that you do that is you'd say, if you want to download your repository from Git, you want to type Git Clone, because we're going to make a clone of what we have here. We have Special Broccoli, which is our repository, and I want to make a clone of Special Broccoli that's going to be local to my computer. So I use the git clone command. So what does the git clone command require? Well, it requires a GitHub link. Well, a Git link. GitHub is a Git link. And I will provide it. github.com. Now, what I need to do is that after I enter the github.com section, I need to put my username. For you, it'll be different. And once I put the username, I need to choose from a list of repositories. For my account, I have different repositories. If you go here, you will see that I have 10 repositories. So I need to choose one of these 10 repositories. For me, I'm just going to choose special broccoli. And then with that, I press enter and it'll be cloning it. And right there it does. So if I type ls, you will see special broccoli is there. So why don't we change our directory to special broccoli? If we type ls, we'll see that it has a readme.md. Well, let's double check with the web to see that this is correct. Yes, our repository has a readme file. So now what I can do with this is I can add code and add a bunch of code to this repository. So why don't I get on that and I'll get back to you. And now I have these files. So now that I have these files locally, I need to update and upload these files to my Git. So how am I going to go about that? Well, one thing I need to do is that I need to check the current status of my Git. And if I want to check the status of my Git, well, I use git status. So this tells me that we have some untracked files, meaning that Git doesn't recognize them at all. It's the make file and some C++ code and a header file. If I want to add these to my repository, I need to use the git add command. So what I'm going to do, because I want to add all of the files, I have, well, there's a few options. If I just wanted to, let's say, add the make file, I can do something like git add make file. This will add the make file specifically. And if we use git status, you'll see, hey, changes to be committed, new file, make file. But I want to add everything, and the way I can do that is git add -a. No, it's -A. So if I use git status, I have added all the files to the Git, and this is what I want to do. So now that I've added them to the Git, I need to do something called a commit, and a commit is used to document what I've done, the changes that I've done to this repository. So I will say git commit and add a message. And you typically want to have kind of like the most useful message that you can kind of think of, but also being general. Added starter code to the repo. Repo is short for repository. And it'll do bang right there. So I have to do this git config, but I'll get back to you. Now that I have that arranged, well, let's kind of review it. So what I need to do for the first time using Git, I need to use git config -- global. Now we'll do user.email. After that, I will say, my email at unm.edu. I actually encourage you guys to create a GitHub account that is not based on your UNM address, because you'll be using your Git well after your time at UNM. So maybe something like gmail.com. I don't know. So you can do something like that to update your user email. For me, I need to do user, and for your name, you guys saw my screen name. It's the first letter of my name and my last name with an 8. You'll do that, and that'll configure everything. So once that Git is completed, I can use git status to check what's going on. Okay, this is great. Now what I need to do is to finalize my commit and my push. Actually, let's run the git commit command again. Here it is. Okay, so now it shows our commit message it shows we added 4 files have changed, we inserted 67 lines. These are the commands that Git is going to use to commit, and for me to finalize the commit I need to do git push, and I think for the first time I need to do oh, that's fine. So I will put my information there. I will put my password, and it'll upload everything to Git. Right, and now if we go here to check what's going on and I refresh the page, we'll see that, oh, now we have these files. And now I've updated my repository. Now let's say, for example, that I wanted to update a file that already exists, like README. README uses a special language called Markdown, and there's some special syntax for Markdown, but this is easily Googleable. So I can do something like, I can make a mini header that says to compile type to compile, and I will say make. I think I need to add a line, and then I'll say to run /run this. Run this being the name of my executable. We'll do git add -u, and the -u command means I'm going to update files that already exist, because if I type status, I'll say, hey, this is modified, but it's part of the Git. So what I really want to do is not add it, but update it. So I'll say git add -u, and it'll add files that I have updated. In this case, README. So I'll add a commit, updated README for instructions on compiling and running the executable. That sounds pretty descriptive. Finally, I will use git push to finalize everything. Bam, it's thrown on there. I will refresh the page, and there we go. We have some instructions. It's pretty good. And we now know what to do when we want to add new files to this Git, and when we want to update files to this Git. In the next video, I'm going to cover some other techniques with using Git, namely creating something called a git ignore file and using git pull to update your repository, as well as doing something called creating and merging a branch. Thanks for watching.